folks, welcome to the next runner profile for the first ever Hurricane 100K. And this is an educational series with my friend, Dr. Mark Cucuzzella. This race is brought to you by the Meeks Mountain Trail Alliance here in the wonderful town of Hurricane, West Virginia on Saturday, September 10th, 2022. On behalf of our events team, Ashley, Brandon, Hager, Stewarts, Robert, and Vanessa, my name is Matt Young. Excited again to bring you this West Virginia's what we believe is the first 100K for both solo and relay runners. We also have a prize purse of $7,500. That's $1,500 going to the first place lady and the first place man, $750 for second place, $375 for third. And then we also have $750 up for each of the co-ed, all male and all female relay teams. So excited to have this. All of this is made possible by a host of local business sponsors, but also the city of Hurricane, which put up the prize money, and our mayor, Scott Edwards. Also our friends at Little Caesars, who are providing both caloric and financial support for the race. So I've got a fellow pizza eater here on us, and that's why we run, and that's why we do things. There's balance in all of it, is to enjoy the good things in life as well. So excited to have this, and let me introduce Dr. Mark Cucuzzella to you. Mark is a professor of family medicine at West Virginia University School of Medicine. He is a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves, where he designs programs to reduce running injuries in military personnel. He has been a competitive runner for over 30 years, completing over 80 marathons and ultras. His marathon best is a whopping 2:24 and has run under 2:40 for a marathon 24 of the last 25 years. He had no race in his medical intern year. 22 of those years were under 2:35, achieving this in 4 different decades. He won the 2011 Air Force Marathon in 2:38, just a week shy of his 45th birthday. And he attributes most of his longevity to his good running form and minimalist principles. He's also the director of the Freedoms Run. He's director of the Natural Running Center, speaks nationally on topics for running, health, and injury prevention. And he also owns True River Treads, a center for natural running and walking in his hometown of Shepherdstown, West Virginia, with a population of 3,000. So his work has been featured in New York Times, NPR, Outside Magazine, Running Times, Runner's World, Air Force Times, Washington Post, and JAMA, amongst others. He's also the author of the book, Run for Your Life. And I'll tell you, Mark is a friend of mine and a running coach and mentor in my life. What I appreciate most about Mark is his ability to take a world of information, and often complex information, and communicate it effectively so that anyone can understand. Mark, excited to have you here, and welcome.
Well, thank you, Matt. That was a kind introduction. I've learned a lot from you because all of this ultra space is new for my world. I was late to the game ultramarathoner when I kind of transitioned a little bit out of road marathons just for a new adventure, and appreciated all the help that you gave me and intel to finish my first 100-miler in the great state of West Virginia.
That's right, man. You did. That was a
year and a half ago. Yeah, you were already showered and had your cookout when I came in, but I got to the line. But thanks to the good advice and help and motivation of friends.
Yeah, well, it's
all about the community, and we all can pull things off that we didn't think we could do.
You know, so Mark, when I did my coaching certification in 2009, did it with Roadrunner Club of America, I learned a number of things, but the epiphany for that weekend for me was when we were building training plans, we were taught that when you have a week's worth of training, you have no more than 2 hard workouts in a week. And hard is defined by either duration. So for us as distance runners, like your weekend long run is a hard run, and by intensity. So no more than 2 hard workouts. What I find over and over again, and it's so difficult to communicate, is where that running easy fits in, how beneficial it is, and how if you do that, you can do this stuff for a lifetime. So tell us, where does running easy and aerobically fit into all of our training?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because, everyone out there is like an N of 1 experiment. And for most of us, probably yourself, myself including, life is hard, right? So my hard workout every day is my day at the job, and running for me is recovery. And, a recovery, exercise session, you should always feel better when you get home than when you left the door. So maybe, we should have no hard workouts a week and just run to recover. And if you go out there every day with that in mind, like I'm running to recover from the rest of my day. It's my time of peace, space. It's good for my brain. I move my body. I sleep better. My mood is better. Rinse and repeat. If that brings you joy, then it's sustainable. Now, if you want to have a specific peak performance, yeah, you got to add a little bit of intensity in there. And I think that word's kind of loose. I mean, you have to have some race specific stuff. So if you want to run a trail 100-miler, you better get on the trail a little bit to know the feel and the skill of running over rocks, and your equipment, your gear, maybe a little bit of nutrition, so you don't need to break yourself down in that session, but that would be a very specific session for that specific event. If you want to run a road marathon in 3 hours, you better do some running at that pace, for a significant distance, but then recover from that. So maybe 6 to 8 weeks out, once a week, you might try 10 miles at your marathon pace. Not enough to break you down, but just enough to try to get the rhythm, relax at that pace, hydrate at that pace, feel that pace and make that pace start to feel a bit easier. If you never rehearse that pace, you'll never be able to just hop into a race and run that pace. But the majority of what we do is just building mitochondria, building our aerobic system, which is our capacity to make these magical currencies of muscle contraction called ATP. The more we build that system, the more we can run, and we can run long and we can run faster. So it's that's kind of the basic formula. Keep it easy, to run fast, because the more of that easy stuff we do, the more we build that aerobic system, and then the faster running actually feels easier because you're more fit.
One of the things I've seen when you say easy, and I'll say that to people, you need to run easy, and they say, well, I'm only running a 9-minute mile. And so, well, that's not what we're talking about. So help us define easy so people can understand it's not a pace. What is easy for them?
Yeah, and easy really, so we look at zones, and I think maybe the RRCA, has like 5 zones. So most of our endurance is built in what we call zone 2 training, and that is where we're using primarily fat for fuel. Now, the way you can just simply define this without having gadgets, technology, heart rate monitors is, most of us know, Matt, and you probably do too, if you're running with maybe a 20-something on the road, there's a pace that all of a sudden you stop talking, right? Or maybe he's chatting away and your respiratory rate picks up. So when we're mostly fat adapted, burning fat for fuel, working on that aerobic system, we produce less CO2, right? So you're not over breathing. But as soon as you kind of switch into more glucose metabolism, that's a harder effort. And our bodies produce more carbon dioxide when we burn sugar. That's like lighting matches versus the log on the fire. And that could be a different speed each day, right? Say you had a poor night's sleep and it's 20 degrees outside with 40-mile-an-hour wind in your face. That conversational pace might be 12 minutes a mile. Say there's ice and snow on the road. And then there could be another day where, you're just feeling better, you're more recovered, slept better, that comfortable conversational pace is going to be a little bit quicker. So it's a kind of sense of feel. But as soon as you cannot, your respiratory rate kicks up. If you're endurance building, you're probably in the wrong space. And it goes back into exercise science lore, even for Olympians, really. So most of us aren't Olympians. So we would benefit doing most everything in that space. But even the best endurance athletes on the planet, be it cyclists, cross-country skiers, rowers, runners, they do what's called 80-20. 80% of their training, look at what the Kenyans do. They call it the Kenyan shuffle. They're just, you're like, are these guys world-class runners? You look at them, they're just shuffling along. But then 20% of their training, geez, you better have a bicycle, because you would make it down the back stretch with them. But the harder they work out, the more you actually have to go slower in recovery. So that's kind of, if you're applying intensity, you even have to do that recovery even easier, or else you're wasting your time, because the only way that harder session is going to reap any benefit is to recover from that session. So time it out in your life. If you have you do accounting stuff, Matt, so probably the next 2 weeks of your life is hard, so you're not going to do any hard running. You're just sun up to sundown, working on financial stuff for people, and maybe run to clear your brain. And then maybe when that's over, okay, we can do some more intense running, because the rest of your life maybe has calmed down. But the more you keep it easy, the less risk of getting hurt. And if you get hurt, it's game over. And I think this is probably true, and maybe you could weigh in, Matt. If you get to with all of the people you've coached, hundreds of people, if you get to the starting line healthy, pretty fresh, right? You don't hate running yet. If you get to the starting line healthy, you'll finish the race 100%. 100%. I mean, unless there's some adverse thing,
Yeah, some kind of acute injury.
Yeah, right. Some kind of acute injury or something, but you'll finish the race. I mean, have you ever seen, like, if they show up healthy, they got no niggles, you haven't broke them down, they've loved showing up for training, right? That wasn't a forced road march. They look forward to the training.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They'll finish the race.
I mean,
whether it's a 100 mile or a 5K, it's 100 miler maybe has a few other variables in there, but for the most part, I mean, even extreme things like that, most of them will finish the race.
Yeah, I think part of it is so many of us have you ever seen these T-shirts that say, "Our sport is your sport's punishment"? So
yes.
People have been punished through running. I was, played football, you mess up, you run laps.
Yeah, go run some laps. Yeah, military method, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Go run. It's so funny. Not long ago, I was helping my son's flag football team, and I was just kind of like lending a hand. And I told my wife, "said I got to get him to like pay attention. Maybe I'll make him run." She said, "What are you talking about? You're doing exactly what you say. It was so terrible for you when you were a kid." I said, "All right, I'll make him do push-ups. I'll make him hate push-ups, but not hate running." So we've all been punished through it, but there's a big part of it that is still like Richard Simmons sweating with the oldies, no pain, no gain. So many people believe no pain, no gain, that is actually, if you're not punishing yourself day in and day out, how are you going to get better? But that's also the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah, doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. I mean, maybe if you're listening, just put this in your brain, right? Like, if your mindset is, gosh, I have to run today, right? Like, you're looking at some calendar that someone gave you on the internet. God, I have to do this workout today. You're in the wrong. You're not running the way you should, and you'll just quit. But like, I wake up in the morning and it's like, I get to run today. I'm blessed. I'm thankful. I mean, I don't really care how cold or wet it is. It's like, I have my health and I can go out the door and it's a beautiful day. I get to wake up and run today, and then I can go to work as a doctor, and maybe I'll be in a better headspace to help listen to people. But every day, if you're like, I get to run today, it's a blessing. You're healthy. You'll do that again and again and again. And even when your race is complete, if you had a goal, like you're a new runner, I think you'll keep running. I mean, I really do. I mean, do you notice that, Matt, and some of your folks who maybe they somehow on a challenge or just, they were pissed at their health and they're like, I'm going to sign up for a 5K. They needed that carrot. They're like, the only way I'm going to do this is I'm going to get a coach. I'm signed up. I'm in. But if you coach them well and they want to come back to practice, they might want to keep running. So, I mean, what have you noticed just with that? Like, people you've seen?
The biggest thing is, so we do our beginner classes. And if you don't know, I teach Genesis running, which is a beginner. It's a couch to 5K program. So I get people in there that have not done anything physically often for decades. And we start with 60 seconds of easy running and 90 seconds of walking. And so first class, I kind of gather everybody around and say, you're here for 9 weeks, but I'm about to tell you the secret of running, that once you know this, you don't have to come back for the rest of the class if you don't want to. You're going to learn other things. But if you learn this one thing, you're going to know what you need to know for running. And you know what that one thing is run easy. And they're like, what? I say, run easy. I mean, and this is what easy means, and this is what it looks like. I can run easier than everybody else out here. And that means it's not slow, because that's negative. Everybody wants to be able to run easy. They don't necessarily want to be slow. That we're having a conversation. If I run alongside you and you can't answer my question in a complete sentence, that's too hard. We're going to back it off and go even easier. And it's like an epiphany for them that this doesn't have to be hard. This is actually enjoyable. They go on and do it for months and years to come. And so somebody listening to this, like if they're listening and thinking about doing the 100K or the relay, going, yeah, that's beginners. But man, I'm expert level. I'm past that. And it's got to be good, for me to run hard. But the principles still apply, don't they?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think no one finishing 100K is doing that hard. I mean, there might be a few people at the front of the pack. You've been in many of these. I mean, maybe the few that are truly racing it and they put their bodies at risk. but the rest of them are actually going pretty easy, and it's a long way, right? It's like hiking the AT, right? You're not hiking hard. You're getting from point to point, conserving energy, walking a lot. I mean, I love the fact you just start them walking, right? Because if they start walk jogging and they continue walk jogging for the rest of their life, I mean, you can walk almost as fast as you can run, if you learn how to walk efficiently, and it mixes up the muscle groups and it gets you, brings your heart rate down. So anyone out there listening to this, unless you're really racing like sub 3 hour marathon pace, even long distances, even half marathons, you're going to benefit by mixing walking in, and learn that rhythm, whether you're a 3-minute jog, 2-minute walk, whatever you like to do. It'll serve you benefits, and the end of the run or the race will feel good, and it won't be like a death march, because you'll applying those strategies early. Walk early and often, I think, is the mantra. Keep
Absolutely.
it easy.
Yeah.
And then when you can smell the barn, maybe, then maybe take some risk, but take no risk until you can smell the barn.
That's it. It's, I've got a saying that says, walk early so you can run late. So you're not on that death march. And even on the flats and the downhills, I mean, so many people are reduced to that because they run too much early. I've learned a lot from you too on injuries, and, the majority of injuries, say that 50 to 80% of runners are injured every year.
Yeah,
And
sad statistic.
It's real, right?
Yeah. They could be biomechanics, but most of it's training error. They have these Garmin's and they're on Strava, and you don't see me on Strava because I'm running ridiculously easy. Maybe slow is not the right word. I have no idea what pace I'm going when I go out there in the morning. It's just moving my body, and some days feel a little better, move a little quicker. Some days I just want to meditate, and you just spring in and nice and relaxed. That's what it's about.
Well, that's, a big part of it is the cycles of rest and stress is what forces the adaptation. So finding that balance in there too, and to develop that, because what we do as endurance runners, and we've got to build that fat burning mode, and that's where the easy running comes in.
Yeah, and nutrition too. I mean, our human bodies, forget about running. We're designed to be fat burning organisms, carry body fat. That's a healthy metabolism. And there's actually a less recovery needed. So when our bodies are able to use fat for fuel, you feel better. Like what you notice is kind of what you don't notice. You don't wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I feel sore, right? It's kind of crazy when you're, eating high quality proteins, healthy fats, reducing carbohydrates, teaching your body to use fat for fuel, because we carry around gallons and gallons of body fat. Even if you're really lean, it's up to 100,000 calories of body fat. We can only store 1,500 to 2,000 calories of carbs, so you're burning matches if you're just burning through carbs all day. But if you're able to access body fat, there's much more ATP is produced when you can mobilize body fat. So you get way more energy. It's like you're an electric car versus a charger, right? So need to do some quick sprinting, escape from the lion. That's the glucose. You need to kind of migrate across the Kalahari. That's your fat adaptation. So play around with it. These adaptations take time, so as we get older, most of us have figured out that the whole, I got to eat a lot of sugar and drink a lot of Gatorade and drink all of these goo gels. No, we kind of learned that actually doesn't work. We teach, we use the fuel that's on our body, and then that's when you're done. Then you go get a meal, right? You replenish after you run. You work up an appetite, but get the protein's really important for recovery too. Because if you have harder efforts, the recovery is when you grow, right? That's how you make the gains. So if you're not recovering with sleep and proper nutrition, you're just wasting your time with those harder efforts. That's just physiology, I think, and experience of anyone who's been a competitive runner. They know that recovery is more than just, putting your feet up and watching, NCAA basketball. It's sleep and food.
Yeah. So when you get up and run in the morning, do you eat beforehand? You go out on an empty stomach, don't you?
Yeah, always. I wake up. I have my friend, this is tea right now, but always coffee. I think many of us are coffee adapted. Oh yeah. So I have my little coffee brewer here, 100% coffee, 2 stiff cups, check my email, read the newspaper online, I have a morning mobility routine. So any old folks like me out there, I'm 55. So while the coffee's brewing, I have 10 minutes of hip mobility, just a little bit of foam rolling, the stuff that I know is tight, right? When we sleep, fascia, all that connective tissue kind of gets a little bit stiff, right? We wake up a little creaky. So you want to kind of mobilize that stuff in the morning, have the coffee and start your jog ridiculously slow. Like that first 10 minutes, you're just waking that fascia up, right? So you're just kind of getting the muscles, the blood flowing. But that's the routine every morning. Give yourself that extra 10 minutes to do a mobility routine instead of just going out the door. And I think that'll pay dividends to keep you well. It's all maintenance. Maintenance isn't sexy, right? It's no, like all the basic maintenance, like with your car.
But it doesn't have to be time consuming either.
No.
Some time in the morning, I do some
half asleep anyway.
Rolling
right? Just roll and
yeah, man. You start out super easy. It's that body. It's it's going from rest to it's 0 to 60. It's so difficult and harmful. And everything else, it's like this. You go from that rest, and the fluids have to start. Everything has to get rolling before you're ready to go for that hard effort. So I'm with you. I mean, if I'm doing a 12 or 13 minute mile to start out, I only do that if it's downhill, not if it's uphill.
Yeah, I have no idea.
It's out the door downhill.
Old dog speed, sniffing and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I've got a friend, my good friends are running, and so anytime he posts something about running, his dad always comments, "Save your knees, save your knees," and he is convinced that we are all destroying our bodies through running. And I tell people all the time, I said, it's not that running is bad. And so in fact, we talk about how the body's made for it. Sometimes the application of running is bad. Running is not good. Sometimes as we get older and we put on weight and we're sedentary, we have to retrain our bodies to run. But inherently, running is not bad for us, and it's not bad for our knees.
Yeah, correct. So bad running might be bad for your knees. So if you just look at the literature, the opposite's true. So, but is it association or causation, as we say in the literature? People that are lifelong runners, who maintain good health, are lean, they have less osteoarthritis, knee arthritis, than the average general population now who are needing a knee replacement at my age. The three main contributors to severe osteoarthritis, and that's what we think about, Matt, when it's going to wear your knees out, that's the cartilage wears out and you need your knee replaced, is number one is actually inactivity. So when we have no activity, right? So the cartilage and the bones like to be loaded, and this is evolutionary biology, right? That likes to be loaded. That helps keep the tissue strong, well, healthy, brings fluid in and out. So doing nothing is actually bad for your joints. The second is obesity. So we're not designed to run on a human body that is too big for the skeleton that we evolved to be in, and that's the food environment in our state, and the world really. So if you're carrying 300 pounds on knees that were designed, if your dad was 160 and you look like your dad and same skeletal structure, other than you've become 300 pounds, that's not good for your knees. 1 pound of excess belly fat is 4 pounds across your hip and knees. So do that math if you're carrying an extra 100. So you better be walking then. I think you'd be safer, walking program, maybe a little light jogging, but be really cautious. And the third contributor is someone who's had past knee trauma. So say in your football career, Matt, you blew out your ACL. So now you want to do ultras, but you already got damaged goods. So you already have an injury there. So that might contribute. But running in itself, so I'm not too worried about that. I probably have well over 100,000 miles in my 40 years of running. And my knees are better than 99% of people my age, right? They're perfect. There's nothing wrong with my knees. They're the same as they were when I was running college track. So they're just fine. So like everyone has to be their own N of one. So for me, they could tell me some recent literature says running is bad for your knees, but that might be for that person. But for my knees, thank you for your opinion. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, I'm okay. I'm not too worried that my knees are going to wear out. Like I'm good. I'll, thank you for that. Everyone wants to give you their opinion. They mean well, and I don't argue with people. But, I say, thank you for that. Someone says an egg's going to kill me. I was like, no, I've eaten 5 a day for the last 10 years and every biological marker is actually optimal. So I'm not too worried about the eggs. For my metabolism, my needs, it's perfect human food.
That's right.
Right. Someone else, maybe not, but.
When I have some of my runners every now and again, or somebody says, my doctor tells me that I shouldn't run, or this is bad for me. So I said, well, somebody had to finish last in their class. It may have been your doctor. Go find a new doctor. Find somebody that's going to help you.
Yeah. If your doctor doesn't run and they're telling you not to run, go find another doctor.
That's a problem.
Yes, because they don't understand it, even from a psychological level. Because Matt, they travel like distance to see me, just because they know I run, and I'll listen to them, and I will do everything I can to get them to run again. And I've never met anyone who can't return to running. I'm military, right? There's people who've come back from theater with 2 above-knee amputations who finished the Marine Corps marathon. So tell me the person with plantar fasciosis or a little bit of knee arthritis can't run. They just need to learn how to do it correct, maybe limit it a bit, walk around, but because if maybe you or me, what things, if you've removed these from your life, like, no, that's not acceptable. You could steal my entire 401k plan, start me from scratch and I'm fine. But if someone said to me tomorrow, my doctor, and I believe them, you just can't run again because it's bad for you. Right? I'd be like, no, I'm going to go, like, that's not acceptable, right. Because it makes your day work. It's my antidepressant, my anti-anxiety. It's what it is. And no, like, and walking doesn't quite cut it. There's something about the running movement of having 2 feet in the air, even if it's super, super slow. Mm-hmm. And the fallacy too, and the literature supports this, Matt, is people will say, well, running's 2.5 times your body weight every time you hit the ground.
Right.
But that's absolutely not true. If you took your shoes off right now, and just did a very slight, easy, rhythmic jog, that's as much impact as walking. That is not slamming your body into the ground. That is like, and you see it, right, with your new runners when they kind of walk, run. Yeah. And there's actually a style of running, and probably if you filmed them at some of these beginner runners, maybe even the bigger runners, they're doing a running motion, meaning that mid-stance, they're lower, right? They're springing versus walking, right? We all know kind of the difference in the movement. One's a spring and one's a lever, but they actually don't have a flight phase. And you see it in almost every ultramarathoner. Right. So they always have at least 1 foot on the ground. They never, Jim Walmsley, and it has a flight phase, right? He's flying 2 feet off the ground.
8 inches off the ground.
He is 8 inches off the ground. But you watch the ultra runners as they mix the walking and the running. It's very similar because they never have both feet leave the ground at the same time. So that way of running, kind of like a mixed walk run, but it just changes the rhythm and it changes the neurology of it. And you've probably like mastered that, right? Because you don't want to have 2 feet off the air, in the air when you're running over rocks. You're right. Kind of like moving and springing, but you always somehow have 1 point of contact or else you're going to fall on your duff.
That's right.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot of, dogma, we call it, but go, I'm sure, Matt, you have people in your community. If you have a running injury, go talk to this doc. He'll at least listen to you and try to get you back to running.
Yeah.
If you live near Shepherdstown, West Virginia, give me a shout. I'll help you get back to running. Go to my store. That's why we opened the store, really, is to be like a sports med center. We do free walk-in running clinics, almost every weekend. People just, hang out, just come in, bring your injury, bring your training question, because the medical model really doesn't support the type of care we give in the running store, where we'll show them all the mobility exercises, put them on a treadmill, do gait analysis, we'll show them strength training, because you got a whole store to do that with equipment, video, treadmills, all right. That. Your regular doctor's office has a bench. Yeah. Have you ever even, like, if you go in there with a running injury, has anyone even gotten you off of the bench? Right?
Yeah,
have they watched your run? No, they haven't watched your run.
Yeah.
Get your footwear. Like, no, they just, your knee hurts, we'll send you for an x-ray.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things I learned from you early is that, the knee is actually made to work like a hinge. And so when they close,
it's not a shock absorber.
Yeah, it's not a shock absorber. And And when it
a
does,
little bit, but for the most part, it is a hinge. Get it out of the way.
absolutely. And so your muscles take care of that. The hinge takes care of that. That's why that absorption, it doesn't have to go into your joints. It's not supposed
Oh,
to go into your joints. And if we do it the right way, when I say, so look, run tall, put some bend in your knee, and don't let that bend leave. And we just sit here and we just hinge like this, back and forth.
yeah.
And
Soften the foot and
that's
ankle.
it.
That's where that's like the shocker in your car, right? That your foot and ankle is the main suspension,
Yeah.
the main shock absorber. So if that's working well, and your hip joint too kind of flexes when you run. So like your body has compliance, meaning, it's going to soften that landing. You don't stiffen up when you land. Learn how to feel the ground and soften. It should be really quiet when you run. That's where practicing barefoot, like a little barefoot or very minimal running, not that you're going to do a lot of distance, but just practice running in your bare feet and just sense how you're going to land, and then reproduce that with some shoes on your feet.
Yeah.
Takes a little practice.
So one of the things we get back to a little bit on the easy running and burning fat. One of the things I've noticed too is, and this is not to be, I guess I have to be kind of careful in the way I say it is, but also by burning fat, man, your body composition changes too, and it's so much better than just burning sugar. And then people will say they run hard all the time. They say, well, why can't I lose weight? You're really almost
It's not about
touching that fat part. It's only the sugar that
they're
you're
just
hitting.
burning matches and filling it back up. Yeah. So yeah, and that's a lot about the diet. So most of us in West Virginia, have insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, pre-diabetes, and they decide to run a half marathon. So many people come into your group met, or the standard West Virginia medical patient, right? Their bodies can't handle carbohydrates. They metabolize them wrong and they store body fat. So when you can mobilize body fat, that makes energy, and that's about the diet. So ounces are lost in the gym, pounds in the kitchen. So that's all, that you can't outrun a bad diet for your physiology. So have a good doctor assess you, whether you have pre-diabetes, high triglycerides, low HDL, a little bit of a belly, hypertension. This means your body cannot handle carbohydrates. You have to get rid of carbohydrates. It's a medical condition, and it leads to cardiovascular disease, which we don't want to get, right? And then you ain't running. So this becomes medical. But when you get rid of the carbohydrates, meaning, you eat more of what I call a human diet, you eat meat, eggs, cheese, non-starchy vegetables, stuff you get at the farmer market from your local farmer, very low in carbohydrates, your body doesn't release insulin. Insulin's the storage hormone. So when insulin is low, your body can use fat for fuel. And all of a sudden, wow, I've lost 5 pounds, 10 pounds off my belly. That's like 10 pounds, right? Plus your metabolism is better. So, oh my gosh, yeah, I mean, it's an epiphany when people, and then they wake up and they have energy. They don't need to eat energy. Their bodies make energy. But, so that's an adaptation that takes sometimes, weeks to months, sometimes even years. To talk to someone who understands this about how to evaluate your disease state or lack of disease, because this all varies based on the person. If I'm seeing them in the medical clinic, I'll suggest things really based on their health. The diet's really based on their health, and that'll help their training if they can get healthy. If you're not healthy, it's very hard to run. If you're healthy, then you feel like running. So get healthy. Get rid of all the processed junk food and sugar drinks right off the bat. And even if you're not pre-diabetic or diabetic, that will serve you well. Some people can handle more carbohydrates than others, but you probably, as a pretty well person, can eat more carbs than the person who shows up at your group on diabetes meds. That person, if he fixed his diet, would like crush the 5K without even training.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to feel great. It's all about, and he's going to enjoy training because he's got energy. He's not storing energy. And then it becomes that forced road march. He's like, I want to go. You wake up. It's crazy when people make this adaptation. They wake up and they want to run because their body is making energy in the morning. That's my body. It's like it's making energy. Insulin's low. I haven't eaten since dinner the night before. So my body's like making this energy. Yeah. People out there who don't understand that, they're like, oh, no, that's crazy. You have to eat energy. No, your body makes energy.
And that's really one of the things, too, that that I learned early. Actually, it was way back. I was listening to a podcast, and you were on there and talking about this. But, I used to eat a banana before I would go out to run every morning. And that, I mean, for years, it's been a decade now since I've done that. But I go out on an empty stomach, and I mean, it's 3 hours. I can go pretty easily.
Yeah, then
without
you get hungry. Then you need a meal.
eating anything. And then you start to realize, because they say fat burns in a carbohydrate flame, which is what I've learned too. So there is a point. I mean, you absolutely have got to have, if you burn through those, then
Yeah, once you burn through, like in
gotta
about
have
3
it.
hours, you got to put a little something in your body because it's like time for lunch, right? Then just
Yeah.
like any regular day.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So your website, the Natural Running Center, I mean, you've got all kinds of great resources and videos. The best one, and I'm going to encourage everybody to go and watch it, is the video of you barefoot running. And it's gotten hundreds of thousands of views, right?
Yeah, I think it's over 1 million now. I haven't been on it in a bit, but simple. It was just like a backyard instructional video on like the gait mechanics and principles of running, just walking through it. So yeah, it's on naturalrunningcenter.com. I think it's directly linked there. I think
Yeah.
we filmed that in like 2013, maybe. It's an old video.
It's been a while.
But I think I don't think anything in that video has been debunked. It's not like that human movement has changed. Like
No.
we've got some new drug or new discovery. No, everything in there. I don't think I would really change anything in that video. It's all pretty much.
No, man, it's incredible to watch.
Yeah.
Incredible to watch, just the way the body works, and especially barefoot. It's interesting when so I still have a video that I used of you. When I did my natural running certification, I did it with you at Fort Knox. Remember when we were out there?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
And it was freezing cold. And I said, Mark, let me video you running, because I still do these clinics where I take people and I shoot videos of them running. I just regular, and then I have them take their shoes off, and I have them do something where they swing their arms real big and then tuck their hands behind their back. And the very last thing I do is I show this is the running form we're going for here. And so we break down what that looks like. Running tall, chin up, elbows back, bending the knees, and how we kind of use that in the rotation with it too. And so I still use that part for these videos and these classes that I do too. And it's so good to see kind of the way it's supposed to be done. And then when people see that compared to themselves, and just about always, it's an overstride. They're just reaching too far. Not landing the feet underneath their hips, so their knees can work like a hinge, and it's way more comfortable, instead of, especially with that, anytime those feet get out ahead of the hips, it's a braking, stopping their forward momentum every time they do it.
Yeah, and imagine in an ultra you're doing that. Like, oh gosh, that's No, you've obviously developed just by practice and sheer muscle memory, very efficient movement, to be able to do the ultra endurance runs you have, Matt. So everyone has their own signature and style, but the same principles apply. If you wake up the next day and you're not sore, you're doing something right. So yeah, we all look a little different. Sometimes it looks a little wonky, but it's actually your signature, and that's your efficient way of moving. So don't watch that video and try to replicate exactly
That's
what I
right,
do, but just go for the same principles and where you want your feet and your knees to be doing. But you got to work on that mobility. Most of us, our hips are so tight because we sit all day. So you'll never be able to run if everything in the front of your body is super tight from sitting. My morning mobility is really opening up my hips, because all that stuff gets, and I'm at a stand-up desk right now because I don't like to sit, other than in front of patients. Otherwise, always be standing up and have a little hat.
One of the other things I learned from you is you say, what's the best movement?
The next one, I think. Every move counts.
Every move counts. The best movement's the next one. So, even, you stand up, you sit down, you go back and forth between that stand-up desk, and I'm always going back and forth all the time. Mobility ball. Yeah.
I can stand with my foot on this, so I can extend my hip, roll it around. I've got a guy here, which is, I can stand on this. It feels really good. So you have all these little, I have a mat which has have all these little things. Just if you're standing for a couple hours, make sure you can stand in some different positions too, because things just they all get tight, right? You're like, oh, that feels good. I think that invisible training, Matt, is actually important too, because everyone's focused on their running, but it's like what you're doing and the rest of the day and how you move and stand. And I think it impacts your running a lot.
Yeah. Stand on one foot, I've got a thing too, just very, very simple, but when I shave, it's shave in the shower, and I stand on one foot, and I go back and forth. When I put on socks, I'm not allowed to lean on something. I have to stand on one foot and put on
That
something.
takes dexterity to do, especially if you have Injinji socks with the toes.
That's right. Well,
It's hard.
Injinjis are different. I can't do that. And that takes
It's
me 10
advanced
minutes. But
Yeah, for the audience, they're the toe
things.
socks, so
Yeah.
people know what those are.
Hey, the last thing I wanna touch on, because you mentioned a few times, is the soreness. And I mean, the whole vitamin I thing. So, if you have to use ibuprofen, if you use it on a regular basis, you're doing something wrong.
Do not. So maybe one takeaway from this. So these medications called anti-inflammatories. So they're not designed to help with recovery of muscle micro-injury, which is workout. So they actually inhibit recovery. So you don't want to take these meds because they actually inhibit tissue recovery. They have an analgesic effect. So the purpose of these meds, Motrins, ibuprofens, Advils, all the same things. If you wake up and you just have a splitting headache, you're a migraine patient, and you just want your headache to go away so you can go to work, take it. All right. Or you say you did something horrible to your back and you cannot get out of bed to even get your body straight again, take it. But when you're thinking you're using these as a quote recovery, you're doing the opposite is true. Plus there's multiple medical complications from these medications, including significant GI bleeds and kidney injuries. I was actually hospitalized when I was in college because I'm a knucklehead. I knew nothing, and we all are hurt, constantly in the trainer's room, and I was taking these medications. It was my sophomore year in college, feeling weaker and weaker, and you're like, am I overtrained, undertrained? And then one day my roommate says, you don't look too good, Mark. And I looked about this thing next to me is white. I was like, looked really pale. And he calls his dad, who's a pharmacist, and describing my symptoms. And his dad asked, "Well, is he taking any medicines?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but they give me this stuff in the trainer's room." And he's like, "What is it?" And it was, I forget which ibuprofen it was. He says he better go, get checked out, because sometimes people get, bleeding ulcers with this. And my hemoglobin was 6 and my hematocrit was 18. And for those listening, sorry, that was less than half of my blood volume left in my body. And I was still going to track practice. Because we're all knuckleheads. I'm like going to track practice when the next day you're in the hospital. So that was my
no pain, no gain.
Yeah, that was my last ibuprofen I've ever put in my body. That took a year to recover physically from that and get my iron stores up again. So do not take. The person who actually created this, the pharmacology of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications is a German. And when he heard they were over the counter in America, he's like, that's insane, because he knew what this chemical was. And he was befuddled. Forget the guy's name, but there was an article in one of the medical journals just based on all the side effects. And it went back to the history of the med and, and what it's now being used for and marketed for. And he's like, that's crazy. This is a toxic substance. And now it's over the counter. And kids are taking it, just because. Like, no. So one dose isn't a big deal, but when people are taking this week after week, day, as a maintenance drug for their Achilles tendinopathy or something, no, it's ultimately going to come home to roost. So I hope I emphasize that point enough. Do not take. Do not take. If something hurts, address it, figure out why it hurts.
Well, that's the thing is that, the inflammation in the body is actually the body's natural response. There's something going on. It rushes in. And it brings inflammation to bring the healing. And all you do is you inhibit that so that your body,
shut it off. No,
heal itself.
Yeah. Now, if you have a hangover and you just got a headache and you want that to go away, pop one or a Tylenol. I don't really care.
Cheeseburger and Dr. Pepper work for that too.
Is that what it is? Goody's headache powder, right? Like old school, right? It's got caffeine, a little aspirin in it, but those, and people use them around the times of the menstrual cycle because it some ladies have significant cramping and it's predictable these days. They take that, it helps them get through. So there are therapeutic uses for those meds, but for the most part, do not take. Not for running injuries.
Right. Mark, thank you, my friend.
Cool. No, this is fun. I hope I get down there in September. I'm like month to month with life. So
listen,
they sound like awesome trails, so, I love exploring new land and, hope to see you at Highland Sky,
We will. Yeah.
I'll be seeking you out for some course intel later as it gets closer.
Let's do it, man. It's anytime. You know, I've done enough. I've got it like I can close my eyes and see it. But
Cool.
we hope that this race is going to sell out, but we will save a spot for you, I promise. So hopefully you
Maybe
can
in
come
the
down.
relay, 100K. Well, that's legit.
Bring a relay, man. Absolutely. Man, the way this is set up is we've got this beautiful bowl. We're going to have it set for crews. We're going to have families there, so people coming in and watching. We've got playgrounds nearby. They're going to hopefully be going up on the trails, hiking up to see their runners, playing movies at night.
Awesome, like a great community there.
All kinds of good stuff, man. And we're really, this is, we hope it is going to be, and we're setting it up to be a destination type where people are going to want to come back to Hurricane every year for this. So
it's a sweet name of a town, right? So I think it's just right there.
It is.
You've got a hip name of a town, right? Like Hurricane.
Yeah.
And the way you pronounce it. No, it's not Hurricane, it's Hurricane.
That's right.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, it's Hurricane,
I don't want
absolutely.
to be like a Luddite and pronounce the name of your town.
No. It should be Hurricane, but you're not the Hurricane.
You're a local, right?
Hurricane.
So it's Hurricane West.
Yeah.
Good. Keep doing good work. You're helping
Thank
people
you for
every
your time.
day. Oh, my pleasure. All right, Matt.
All right.
Signing off. Bye-bye.